Welcome back to BLOCKTV. It's time now for links in the chain. With scaling and transaction speed still critical problems to be addressed in the Bitcoin blockchain, we turn to those building the solutions of the future to understand where the industry is at. Over at Blockstream, they've built the project dubbed Crypto Alchemy. That, of course, is what I'm talking about today, is Liquid, a sidechain technology that allows a rapid transfer of Bitcoins across the network, skirting around the slow and cumbersome main chain transactions of the network. And I speak now with Alan Piscitello, Vice President of Product Management at Blockstream. Alan, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolute pleasure. Now, to kick things off today, for the uninitiated among us and those who don't fully understand it, can you give us the basic breakdown of what Liquid is, how it works, and how it can help to change the industry?
Yeah, so Liquid is a Bitcoin sidechain. So what that means is you can take Bitcoin that exists on the normal network and you can move it into the Liquid network where it has different properties. So you can do things that are not possible with Bitcoin. So some of the things that we are able to do is to have transaction finality in 2 minutes, which is very useful for trading applications. And you also have the ability to have privacy within the chain. So this means that when I send a transaction, that the only people who know what I'm sending and how much I'm sending are the sender and the receiver and any third parties that they are sharing that with. So this is something that is very useful for trading. We see front running as a big problem in the ecosystem right now. So when someone makes a transaction from one exchange to another, everyone in the world is able to watch and see that that's happening. And while that transaction is waiting to confirm, that leads to a disadvantage for that trader. So this is something that we think will add liquidity to the system by allowing people to move funds faster, allow for greater fairness in trading as well.
And I mean, that key issue of speed is an absolute critical one in the network. Obviously, there's been, that you address the points of security there, but that speed element is something that is just fundamentally gotten past from the standard Bitcoin blockchain into the side chain of Liquid. Can you talk about that element when it comes to the development of Liquid and how it can sort of change the industry?
Yeah, so since Liquid uses signed blocks by a federation, we don't have to wait for miners to find the right block. And in Bitcoin right now, you basically are trading, as an exchange, when you accept funds, how much security do you want that that transaction cannot be reversed? And that goes up with time. And so the idea is, as you may need to wait up to an hour in normal conditions. And if there's bad luck in mining, it could take 3 hours to get your transaction onto an exchange. And by that time, the price can move quite a bit. We saw the crazy movements last week that basically, if anyone was trying to trade during those times and it was stuck during a block that wasn't mined, you weren't able to trade and to take advantage of it. Meanwhile, with Liquid, we have blocks every minute. And because we're already doing an environment we're built around for exchanges anyway, it's not necessarily a security trade-off. So you're basically able to take your Bitcoin or other assets such as Tether and move it between different exchanges and have it arrive within 2 minutes, which is very useful for trading.
Now, I wanted to break down into that concept you just spoke about, the signed blocks by federation, because I know that there has been some discussion, criticism, depending on what you want to call it, about that element, which, as far as I understand, limits the sort of use of a certain number of functionaries who get to help produce the consensus on a block, but some suggest that sort of moves away from the pure decentralized vision of Bitcoin. Can you go into that element a little bit more for us and address some of those criticisms and concerns that have been raised about it?
Yeah, so one thing we want to make certain is that the base layer of Bitcoin doesn't change and is this purely decentralized layer. But on top of that, you can build many different layers that have different trade-offs. So you can have a layer like Lightning, which has one set of security trade-offs, and you can have a layer on top of it like Liquid that has a different set. And since Liquid is based around trading, the typical custodianship of Bitcoin during trading right now is a single exchange. So I'm already trusting that one party with my funds. Whereas with Liquid, I'm now expanding that from a single exchange to a federation, which requires a supermajority to secure the blockchain. So this means that you have a greater sense of security compared to the application that you are actually going towards. So this is something that is very, I would say, more towards the Bitcoin roots of decentralization. And then you also have the ability that when you have assets, a mined blockchain is really not the ideal situation here because you can have normal rollbacks. With Liquid, you have guarantees that there will not be rollbacks more than one block, which means if you do see anything like that, you have cryptographic proof that something has happened incorrectly, and as a issuer of an asset, you can go and correct that.
So I suppose then, in talking about the sort of reliance on exchanges, we're considering Liquid as more functional for your common user, not someone who's running a full node on the blockchain network and able to interact seamlessly with the blockchain itself, but those who are relying currently on exchanges, on those sort of bottlenecks, now can get around that into, as you say, a federated system which provides a greater essence of decentralization, correct?
That's correct, but you can also run a full Liquid node as well to see what's going on. So it doesn't require a great deal more resources than running a Bitcoin node. So if you do have the power users that want to validate and make sure that the federation is behaving correctly, you can download a full Liquid node, and you can monitor the blockchain and see that everything's working properly there as well.
A fantastically useful element, and it's something that those key Bitcoin advocates are always going to be looking for. Now, but I want to talk about another element of Liquid that has a lot of power, and that, of course, is the atomic swaps element of Liquid, that ability to transfer between different currencies. Can you address how Liquid works with that and what some of the latest developments are when it comes to atomic swaps?
Yeah, so Liquid not only has Bitcoin as an asset that is supported in it, but you have the ability to create any asset at the native protocol level in Liquid. So we already have Tether on board. We have many other stable coins lined up that are in the process of integrating as well. You have the ability to create things like security tokens or utility tokens or exchange tokens on the Liquid network. And what this means is, in a traditional atomic swap, what this means is you can have a trade between one asset and another asset where neither party can control the other asset until the swap occurs. With multiple chains, this is possible, but it does take a risk of a long timeout period where you could be without your funds. Because the assets are at the native level and Liquid, you only need one transaction, and this can occur within 1 minute, and you could cancel it within 1 minute if you wanted to. So this is something where I could trade with you. We don't have to trust each other. If I have 9,000 Tether and you have 1 Bitcoin, we could make a trade and it would immediately go through and we each end up with the other party's asset.
It seems a powerful tool, to be sure, and potentially one that competes with a lot of sort of interoperable chains or other networks that attempt to achieve some level of direct interoperability. I mean, even thinking about the Ethereum network and the ERC20 tokens that have a degree of interoperability. Do you see this as a potential competitor to that marketplace, or is this resolving a different issue in your mind?
Yeah, absolutely. There's, what we've seen from Ethereum is it's got a very complex layer. Just even doing an ERC20 token, you have to write a smart contract to do this. With Liquid, we took the other approach where we just made that part of the protocol. We found that that's kind of what people are using these protocols for the most part. They're not using it as much for the advanced smart contracting sides. They're using it just as a token management system. And Liquid, just by having that at the native level, gives you a lot of power where those tokens are treated just as important as Bitcoin, and you can include them in your transactions the same way. The same wallets work, the same interfaces work, the same addresses work, and everything just is naturally the same.
It certainly sounds like a powerful tool, but I guess a tool is only as good as its use cases. And now we've had a bit of a wild ride when it comes to crypto markets over the last few days, but even weeks and months. But in preparation of an imminent bull run that might be occurring leading up to the next halving event in May of next year, is there a sort of integration going on when it comes to Liquid to get it ready and primed to be part of that next run?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're working very closely with our member exchanges to include Liquid as a option to move funds around. This is going to be a key part of the infrastructure for the next bull run. When you notice the last bull run happened about the same time transaction fees went very high, and the people that are able to pay those fees are generally going to be the traders, and the exchange to exchange volume, I think at those points was at least 50% of the blockchain. So if we can offload that demand from the Bitcoin blockchain to Liquid, where the trust model makes more sense for exchange customers, and then that would leave a lot of space available for normal Bitcoin users to be able to transact normally even during these bull runs. So we've been working very closely. We had a Liquid Federation meeting in Tokyo last week, and we wanted to make sure that we had as many exchanges as possible, joining Liquid and integrating so that if a trader wants to send money between any exchange, that they can do this using Liquid.
Okay, so in your vision then, Liquid is more for the purpose and function of allowing for those larger scale transactions that potentially would clog the network, or those rapid rates of transactions that could clog a network in a time of peak use, such as an X bull run, to avoid those sort of 2017 backlogs that we saw, where there are incredibly high fees, where there are all sorts of delays and scalability issues right there and apparent. And that's your sort of vision of Liquid going into, say, the next hypothetical bull run that should occur?
Absolutely. I think that's a key role that Liquid can play. I don't think it's the only role it can play, but it's definitely a very important one.
All right, and just while we have you here, then addressing perhaps some other potential roles that you see for Liquid going into the future. What's sort of the grander vision, the narrative looking forward? If you were to peer ahead 1, 2, 5 years now down the line, where do you see Liquid fitting into the current market network?
Yeah, so the next step for Liquid really is adding as many assets as possible to the Liquid blockchain. This will increase the usefulness. The more assets you can swap, the more assets you can trade, the better that Liquid will fare. So what we've been doing is working very closely with a lot of different traditional asset companies that want to digitize and add their offerings to the blockchain. So this is something that when you're dealing with more traditional financial companies, something that could take longer, but we're definitely seeing a lot of inroads here. So when I look 1, 2, 5 years down the road, I expect to see a lot more assets offered on Liquid, and not just necessarily in the cryptocurrency space. So looking to expand even broader than that.
All right, fantastic. It sounds like an amazing vision. I look forward to seeing how that does pan out in the future. Alan Pusatello, Vice President of Product Management at Blockstream, I want to thank you so much for joining us on BLOCKTV and helping to break down this fascinating new development in the world of Bitcoin and how it is all working. In the meantime, stay with us at blocktv.com for all the latest in news and information. I'm Asher Westrop Evans. Thanks for watching.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.